I am Rachel. So what I do with the team, I do a lot of stuff with GeorgiaGov. I work on the website and do a lot of stuff with the blogs. I write blogs and organize guest blogs. I know I've talked with a few of you getting your content on our website. I also do social media for GeorgiaGov. So we have a Facebook and a Twitter page. We recently acquired access to the State of Georgia LinkedIn page. So for the past couple of weeks, we've been doing that as well. And I also do infographics. We published our first infographic on the GeorgiaGov blog last October. We've created 10 cents and put them on the blog and on social media, and that's what I'll be talking about. Okay, so this is the what, why, and how of infographics. So the what, we're going to start with a little history. This definition, there are a lot of definitions for infographics. People kind of think of them in different ways, but this is the one that I think best represents what I'm talking about. So Mark McKicklis is a designer and a digital strategist, and this is his definition. It's a visualization of data or ideas that tries to convey complex information to an audience in a manner that can be quickly consumed and easily understood. Okay, so it just takes the content, it takes the ideas, and makes them visual, and makes it easier to understand. And so you'll see that it says data and it says ideas, so it doesn't just have to be data visualization, it can also be text and other things along those lines. Okay, so go back in history to the cave paintings of 30,000 BC. We don't know exactly why they created, but one pretty strong theory is that it was to communicate. And so they would paint these animals on the cave walls to show where you would hunt, pretty much. So that's a form of communication. Zooming way forward to the 1850s, Florence Nightingale was a British nurse during the war, and so she started collecting data of how soldiers were dying during the war. And she actually found that it wasn't because of the war exactly. A lot more people were dying because of poor living conditions and poor health care. And so this was something that she was able to visualize in this kind of funky little pie chart. And she used this to present to Parliament, and actually they made a lot of changes to how healthcare was handled during the war and saved a lot of lives. So infographics save lives. In 1972, we had the Munich Olympics, and Aicher is a designer who created these icons for the sports. So the Olympics, of course, there are lots of people from different countries. They don't all speak the same language, and they still need to find where to go to watch the game that they want to see. And so this designer created all of these icons to cross that barrier. And then, of course, more recently, infographics have just exploded. They're all over Pinterest. There are infographic directories that are specifically for infographics. You can search by topic and all that kind of stuff. And it's social media. So why do we use infographics? Why should we even care? So if you try to find why on the internet, this is the statistic that will pop up all over the place. 65% of people are visual learners, is what it says. That's based on the idea that there are types of learning based on different senses, so visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. This is not necessarily true. A lot of psychologists disagree about it, but one thing that they do agree on is that there are different types of learning, whether it's by senses or whether it's by something else. People learn in different ways, and so infographics cover a lot of these different ways by providing information visually and with words. Okay, so I'm going to do a test and use some audience participation, and we'll see how words compare to icons. So a word is going to flash on the screen just real quick, and I want you to see if you can read it. And then after the word, I'll flash an icon, and you can kind of compare which one is easier to understand. So the first one, we're going to do this twice. The first one might not be too difficult, so. Everyone catch that? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's the icon that goes with it. Okay, so then what happens when an image can't be represented with just one word? A little more difficult, right? Okay, so we'll try an icon. That's a little easier. Okay, so basically the idea is imagery does help. It takes 0.15 seconds to process a symbol, 0.1 second to attach meaning to it. So those images and text that were on the screen, they flashed up for about 1/10 of a second. And I think we could all see that the image was easier to understand than the word. It also helps with recognition and recall. So recognition is being able to understand what you're seeing. Recall is being able to remember it later. So studies show that images have, you can remember them better than just reading text. And it's also the universal language. This goes back to the idea of the Olympics, that images can help cross those barriers where text can't otherwise, which is really important because 13.4% of Georgians speak a non-English language at home. So we need to be able to reach those people just as well as anyone who does speak English. Another reason why sharing is caring, so people like to share what they learn on social media. And infographics are very easy to share on social media. And so they will do that, and that'll help your SEO. People will get back to your website through those infographics. So here's a study, or a case study from GeorgiaGov. This is a blog that we posted about a year ago about becoming a foster parent in Georgia. So our Google Analytics show that it's a pretty average blog. We got 454 views in the first 2 weeks. The highest number on one day was 74. And on Facebook, it also did reasonably well. It got 4 likes and comments. It's pretty average, nothing spectacular, but that's pretty normal for our blogs on social media. And then just last month, we published this infographic about adoption. It's a very similar topic. The same types of people would want to be looking at it. So Google Analytics show that in the first 2 weeks, we got 590 views with a top of 215. And that was the day that it was posted on Facebook. So Facebook, these are the highest numbers that we have seen on our social media. It got almost 40,000 views with 834 reactions and comments. So this just blew us away. It was amazing that this content could reach so many people and so many people were responding to it. And 44% of adults get news on Facebook. Now, read carefully. It doesn't say they get all of their news on Facebook, so before you have a heart attack. But yes, this just gives it the idea that they're not going to be coming to your website. They don't go searching for your website to find out what's going on in this agency. They want it to come to them. So if they're already on Facebook and we can bring this information to them in a way that is easy to understand, then they're going to look at it. Okay, so how do we do infographics? There are a few steps that I've outlined: establishing goals, brainstorming, researching your content, organizing content, and then the design. So I'll go into each of these. So nothing can stop you from reaching your goals, all schoolies. Thank you, buddy. So you want to establish your goals. Some things that we came up with that we wanted to accomplish with our infographics is to make information easier to understand. This, of course, goes along with the why that I was covering earlier. It makes it a lot more accessible, a lot easier. And it also increases our reach. It spreads a lot faster than just a text web page would. So you'll need to brainstorm and research your content. Content is king. It is what's most important. Even if you have a beautiful infographic and it has all these nice little characters and little icons on it, no one's going to care if it doesn't have good content, if they don't want to know what you're trying to say. So a few things that you can try evergreen topics. These are what last over time, things that are not tied to a specific event, so that way people will keep coming back to it. So a few like areas that you can look at: you can use data, comparisons, how-tos, you can have a timeline or quick facts. So just like brainstorm with your team and come up with what type of content that is already available, that you already have, that you would like to turn into an infographic. So then you need to organize your content. Don't be like Michael Scott, just starting and let's just see what happens. Not really a great practice. So here's where you figure out exactly what you're going to include. I always start my infographics with just a very brief sketch. So this shows an outline of where I'm going to go with it. So here's a little closer up. You can see that it has different sections. This is the adoption infographic again. I have the different sections in there, so I know what I want to include, but I don't actually include all of the body copy in there. And so when you're figuring this out, use storytelling skills. You can come up with your content like how you would be writing a blog. Just include a beginning, a middle, and an end. So introduce your topic. So I did that here with a definition of adoption and the numbers, like who is involved. Middle, that's where you really get into the bulk of it, and then an ending. I like to include resources at the bottom that they can go to learn more. Include a context and a sequence of events. This just lets them know that it's a story, that there's something coming next, and they want to find out what it is. Then you need to actually design it. So you have all this content, and we'll put it together now. So here are some tools that you can use. I always work in Illustrator, the Adobe program, and you can also use Photoshop, and then there are free versions of those online, Inkscape and GIMP. If you're just looking for data visualization, you can even use Microsoft Excel. That gives you some graphs and pie charts and all that. DCAN, we talked about this earlier, Nikhil talked about it. They are a data visualization platform that's available through us. So if you're interested in that, you can put in a ticket with us. And then there are a few online resources for creating infographics. Visually, Venngage, Easily Infogram. These are all infographic creation tools that you can get online. A lot of them are like partially free, so you can get so far and then you have to pay for it. But it can be a good start. And I've even looked on those to get inspiration just for how to organize stuff. Okay, so then you're going to have to put it online. So we need to think about how to make it responsive, accessible. We'll talk about file format, how to put it on social media, and how you can repurpose it. So responsive design, we've talked about a lot with websites. It's making sure that something looks just as good on the desktop as it does on your little phone. So with websites, of course, we do that with code. There is even a way that some people have done that with infographics, creating it with code, but that takes a lot of resources, it takes a lot of time, and it actually limits the design. So here's some best practices that we've been using for our blog. You want to make sure that it is the width of the column that it will be in when you design it. So our blogs, or our columns on the platform are 740 pixels wide. And when you upload it, make sure that it's at 100% width and height. And so that'll make sure that it resizes along with your screen. And then make sure that your text is legible. So I recommend 14 point absolute minimum, 16 if you can. That just makes sure that you can still read it when it's on your phone without having to zoom in. We are coming up with a new infographic paragraph type. Kendra mentioned this earlier. So it will actually allow you to put the infographics into that type of content. And then you'll be able to do things like pinch and zoom on a mobile screen. And you can still include the alternative text, which I'll talk about in a second. So we want to make sure that everything is accessible. Make sure that everyone can actually gain from your infographics. So make sure that you have high enough color contrast. This URL right there is a contrast checker that you can use. So you can put in the hex code for the foreground and the background colors, and that'll tell you if it is accessible, if people will be able to see it easily. Also include alternative text. You always want to do this with images. So what we use, with every infographic, we'll include this little line, graphical representation of the text provided in this blog. So that means that little picture there is your infographic, and there is a link above it that's a jump link. So they'll see that, and if the person can't see it, or if they learn better from text, they can click on that link, and it'll jump them below the infographic, so then they can actually just get to the text part of it. And make sure that you always include a text version of your infographic on the same page. That way, it's accessible, it's easier for screen readers because they have less clicks to go through, and it also increases your SEO. Okay, so file format. now that you have this beautiful infographic, you don't want it to just be all pixelated and blurry. That'd be really sad. So we discovered that SVG is a very good file type for us. That stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. And that means that you can resize it and it won't lose quality. It's also a very low file size because it's all just code. It's not actually the image itself. There is a problem with SVG. If you're interested in looking into this more, I wrote a blog about it on our interactive site. But basically, if you have any raster images in here, so such as this infographic I made, you can kind of see it. There's a picture in the background, and in Google Chrome, sometimes that just wouldn't show up. If it was an SVG file, it was very confusing. And so it's just a bug that's going on right now. I'm sure they'll fix it eventually. But if that happens, if you have raster images, or if you have gradients in your graphic, then it's best just to save it as a raster file and optimize it and get it as small as you can. And you'll want to do that anyway for social media. So when you post an infographic on social media, just upload it as a photo. So we take our infographics and split them into sections. So you can see this is all one long one, and then we have it in 3 different pieces. And I'll just always copy the header and the footer into there and post one at a time. So that way it's actually easier to see on social media, especially Facebook desktop. There's no way of zooming in. It's just going to be as tall as your screen is. So it needs to be short enough that the text will be legible. And then also, this helps spread out the lifetime of your infographic. This one, for example, we spread out over 3 different weeks. We posted one piece of it each Tuesday. And the first couple they got like decent response, but the third one did really well. I don't know if that was just the timing of it or what, but it gave it another chance to really get some attention. And when you post on social media, if you worked with anyone on getting the content together, just make sure that you give them credit for it. And you'll always want to link back to wherever the full infographic is. So that'll probably be on your blog. Just put a link in there so that you can get to it, and that of course brings more traffic back to your website. So on our platform, add this that can be put down at the bottom of your blogs. So that screenshot at the bottom there shows what it looks like. So that's when someone is on your blog and they want to share it. Then there are these easy buttons that they can click on, and it'll post on their social media for them, or it'll print it, or send an email. And so if you're interested in getting this added, put in a ticket with us and we can get that on your website. So along with that, you get some analytics. So you can find out where people are sharing your content. You can look at individual pieces of content and see how well those are doing. And then you can repurpose your infographics. So for example, if you have the capability, you can make a video out of it. So with this driving on black ice, this is an infographic we worked on with Gina back in December. After creating the infographic, the still image, which was on our blog, then we posted these videos on social media. So it would just kind of pop out the different pieces over time. And that was just a way to get more traffic. You can also, hang on with the cat meme. You can also revisit your content over time. Like if it's like this, we'll probably be posting this again next December. If it's something that maybe some information has changed, you can always update that, and you can still work with the original graphics, so the bulk of the work is done. Just update any information that needs to be updated. Okay, cat meme. So if this is you, you don't know what to do because you're not a designer, maybe you don't have a designer, maybe you just don't have time. What do? Okay, we're here to help. Oh, put in the ticket with us, and I will work with you. You will be the masters of the content, and you can send me your content, and I will just visualize it, and we'll work back and forth to make sure it's everything that you want. So we've done this in the past with the Senate Press Office. They had some Twitter analytics that they wanted to visualize from during the legislative session, because there was just a huge boom in their analytics, and they wanted to show that they were making a difference, that people were using their Twitter feed. So we worked together to come up with that. And then again, this is the one that I worked with GMI last December. They provided the content, they were the experts, and I just put it together. So that's pretty much it. I think we're gonna have a Q&A now, where we can answer any of your questions. But that's it.